Woof. Okay, so welcome to, this is our 5th session of going through this stuff again. We did it almost 2 years ago, and we're going back through the first at least 30 sessions. And the first session, we talked about our opening words, which are important because they establish our primary purpose, which as always is to get more thoroughly grounded in this book, and to know where pieces of information are in the book. One, to help our own recovery. Two, to help us help others to establish a relationship with God. And three, to help us become trusted servants of our fellowship, because if we don't have the fellowship, we don't got nothing. So we dealt with the opening words. Then the second session, we talked about this study guide. So the study guide's primary purpose is the same thing. It just goes through the book, literally page by page, asking questions. A lot of stuff is in there that's not conference approved. It comes from outside sources, other people, and I'm hoping as we move along here that you will get it printed out, because it's easier to look at least it is. I'm old school. It's easier to look at printed pages and move around than it is to do electronically. So then session number 3 was the kind of an overview of this whole deal, and we called it the teaching of the circle and the triangle. And the triangle represents the 3 major activities of our fellowship, our meetings, our one-on-one work of recovering. We call it recovering from our insanity, you might say. We do that one-on-one, and then service, which is where we are trying to answer the question, the 10-step question, God, how can I best serve thee? It was reading number 4. How can I best serve thee? Thy will not mine be done. These are thoughts which must go with us all the frickin' time. I mean, none of us do it, but that's what it says. And that this is the proper use of the human will. So the service component is our response to that question, how can I best serve thee? And the whole thing's in a circle, which represents getting serious about prayer and meditation. And as we move along, you'll find that I think step 11 is the biggest PDF. I mean, it's only, what, 3 pages in the book, or 3.5 pages. And yet it's really the key step, because how are we going to do anything else if we don't have the ability to pause and ask and listen and do in accordance with the guidance that we get when we pause. So you'll find 11's big. So at any rate, we spent 2 sessions doing that, and today we probably would have started into the doctor's opinion, but then Desi, who I see is here, asked a question through Anne Marie in the open discussion, which will take place here after we're done, when I'm done with this short lecture to be endured. Where did I veer off? And it's just such a wonderful question, because I think part of our recovery is determining more clearly what our problem is, and so that we can get to work on a solution to that problem. And trying to answer the question, where did I veer off, is a great way to try to understand more clearly what the problem is. And I think I said, well, I don't know, but I was always of the opinion that once I started drinking, I stopped developing emotionally. And that as a result of that, I couldn't really grow up, and I couldn't form an effective relationship with God. So I blamed it all on alcohol. I veered off because I'm an alcoholic and I can't drink safely. And if I take one drink, I'm gonna drink till I run out, pass out, or black out. And I was okay with that answer. But in listening to you people and feeling more secure in my relationship with whatever you want to call it, higher self, soul, God, I don't care. Jesus, Buddha, Confucius, don't matter. I really see that it's the reverse, that we've spent a good bit of time running through those three aspects of the disease. It's page 20, the last page of the introduction, and it separates, and you can say it's an artificial separation, I don't care, but if it's helpful, it separates the disease into a physical component, a mental component, and a spiritual component. And then it offers a symptom by which you suffer from that aspect of the disease, and it offers a solution to that symptom. It gives us a treatment plan to that solution, and then also there are some promises of treatment. So the physical part is this allergy that I can't drink safely, and the solution is abstinence. That's all Silkworth says we can do, is not drink. That's all. And the promises of not drinking are no hangovers, no handcuffs. Whatever it is that works for you, whatever physical part you suffered from. Mine was hangovers. I mean, I was determined to stop at drink number 3, and because I somehow in my deluded mind, I thought that meant I wouldn't be hungover in the morning, and I never could. And I did this for 50 years. And so I don't want to talk too loudly because it jumps the program off or something. But so allergy, phenomenon of craving, abstinence, no hangovers, and mental part, strange for me, strange mental blank spot. What's that mean? Well, it's the failure of the hot stove defense. I've never touched a hot stove twice, and I drank 30,000 times thinking somehow it would be different. What's the solution to the failure of the hot stove defense? Well, this is a little bit more involved, but in this simplistic way I'm trying to present it, the solution is steps 4 through 9. The solution is where we try to recover to sanity. With this, the 4 through 9 is the reverse of where did I veer off. 4 through 9 is what we do to get back on the beam. When I mean, I've been thinking about this for 2 weeks, and there are all kinds of responses to where did I veer off. You can say first response could be, well, what difference does it make? Who cares where I veered off? The question is, how am I going to get back to whatever it is I think I veered off from? I think some people in here will say, I never veered off because it's like, when they get to the second part of step 2, I don't get this restored to sanity. I don't think I was ever sane. And I think that's true for a lot of us. We are, when you're born into hell, when you come to consciousness and you're in a hellacious, difficult early life situation, which is not going to be true for all of us, but it's true for many of us. The only thing on your mind is, how do I get out of hell? How do I escape the situation I'm in? And so you're not worried about how you veered off. You're worried about, how am I going to get back on? Sometimes people will say, off the beam, I feel off the beam. And it took, for me, I go, well, what's the beam? Are they talking about a balance beam? Well, it's Emmett Fox once again. He has such an influence on our program, and he talks about airplanes trying to come in for a successful landing, and there's a radio beam, and when they're on the beam, they're going to come in successfully. They're going to land the plane successfully. When they're off the beam and either they don't hear a radio signal, or they hear something else that tells them they're not hearing a radio signal, they're not going to land safely. So it's a wonderful term, because on the beam for us means humbly relying on God. I understand what that means, and I am able to do it to some degree. And remember, it's in the last reading, the one Andy did, just to the extent that I humbly rely on God and do as I think God wants me to do, I'm going to experience serenity, the feeling that everything is okay, that I don't have to change anything as long as I am acting in accordance with the guidance that I get from my higher level of consciousness than the human mind and the human body. Just to the extent that I do that, humbly rely and act, behave, I'm going to be enabled, means I'm not doing it, I'm going to be enabled to experience this okayness, sanity, sane responses to my life, in spite of the calamity of my life, in spite of everything going wrong on a physical and mental level, no matter what it is. For me, that's the most awesome promise in the book. And I've also found that if I'm not experiencing serenity in the calamity, the question is, what am I not doing? It's a two-part formula. Humbly rely and behave the way I think God wants me to behave. I'm promised serenity. So if I'm not experiencing serenity, what am I not doing? And that's going to bring you to, well, what's this humble reliance thing? And the part for me that's hard about that is I have been living, I'm going to say tyranny, under the tyranny of my self-reliance for most all of my life. So the real problem is how tyrannized am I by my self-reliance? Am I powerless over my self-reliance? For me, my greatest fear is powerlessness. And what this book keeps trying to say, well, buddy, you're in the right place, because lack of power is your dilemma. Lack of power to do what? To respond to the calamity of my life with patience and tolerance and kindness and love, instead of restless, irritable, and discontent, and resentment, fear, and remorse. Right? And it's worse. It's worse because reading number 3 says, if I'm as seriously alcoholic as they were, I only get 2 choices. There is no middle. What they say is there is no middle of the road solution. You're either in or you're out. There is no middle ground. You can half-ass as long as you want, but you're not going to get anywhere when you're in the middle, half-assing it. You're just going to. It's the same as going on to the bitter end. What words Wilson used? If you're as seriously alcoholic as we were, you only have 2 choices. 1, go on to the bitter end, trying to blot out of your mind how frickin' miserable you really are, how bad you feel about your own life, how unable you are to respond to, I'm saying I mean me, how unable I am to respond to my life with patience and tolerance and kindness and love. And old Jesus basically said, this is the kingdom. The ability to respond with patience and tolerance and kindness and love in spite of the calamity. That's the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, whatever you want. That's serenity. I think I'm off topic. I better look at my notes. So thank God for notes. When you get old, if I have one of those senior moments, all I got to do is look down at the four pages of notes I've got here, in 20 minutes. So we'll see. Okay, where did I veer off? What difference does it make? Well, I have a sponsor who's really annoying, and he initially had 2 questions, and now he's got 3, and the third one's even worse. So I would whine and complain, tell him about my calamity, tell him about all the reasons why other people are behaving in a way that makes me unhappy. And he would just sit there and smile, and then he'd say, well, how's that working for you? Which is an awful question. I mean, if you want to hurt somebody's feelings, how's it working for you? And then he would, his second question, well, okay, I'm saying, well, obviously not very well. I want to drink, or, I want to kill somebody, or whatever it is. Well, what are you going to do about it? That was always the second question. What are you going to do about it? And then somewhere along the line, he added this third annoying question: where do you see the presence of God in your life right here, right now? Dude, and I'm really focused today much more on seeing that presence of God. And so I'm hoping next week that we're going to start into this. There's a little section in that introduction called Skimming Through the Big Book, and it really tries to hit high points of the big book. And it's just again, by way of introduction, but I'm really into these Ignatian spiritual exercises, the founding process of the Jesuits, and they have a thing called preparation days that they do these retreats. And so the first part of the retreat, the retreats are divided into 4 weeks, which really, it means 4 periods. It doesn't mean weeks, but and they start with preparation days. So what we're doing in these early sessions are preparation days. That the moment's going to come, and we're going to dive into the first page of the doctor's opinion, and we're going to start going through it in a detailed kind of way. And right now we're just trying to, so any rate, so I got a bunch of pages that I want to take you through. And if you've got the written thing in front of you, it's going to be a lot easier. You're not going to have to write down page numbers or anything else. And one of these pages is page 28. And boy, the pages 25 through the end of the chapter, they're really remarkable. There is a solution, and they're really remarkable. This is the moment where Carl Jung says to this other guy, to Roland Hazard, he says, no, I have never seen one single case recover where somebody had an alcoholic mind like you do. Never seen one single. I mean, this guy's spending all this time and all this money with the finest psychiatrist in the world, and the psych. If I was Roland Hazard, I'd be going, "Hey doc, why didn't you tell me this at the beginning before I started writing you these checks and spending all this time? Why didn't you say, consumer alert? I've never successfully gotten one of you guys sober." But he does say, you need a spiritual experience. And I'm going to tell you, if Carl Jung had not said this to Roland Hazard, you and me are not even having this meeting today. Bill and Bob are our co-founders, but there are 2 doctors, 3 doctors, Silkworth, Jung, and 2 doctors, Silkworth and Jung, 2 ministers, Frank Buckman, that developed the Oxford groups, and Sam Shoemaker, that refined it in New York City, and then 2 drunks, Roland Hazard and Evie. All those people had to do something before Bill Wilson could get sober. If any one of them didn't do what they did, we're not here. I'm getting off. Okay, so page 28. I just love this. It's in the middle of the page and in the middle of the paragraph that starts with distinguished American psychologist. If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, dude, they've just written this book. They got this little fellowship going, and they've all labored to recover their sobriety and to start trying to recover their sanity. And they're saying, if all of this suffering that we have been through, all of this confusion, anger, resentment, fear, remorse, all this stuff means anything, what's it mean? It means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, substitute all of us, no matter how you veered off or when you veered off or where you veered off, no matter what, all of us, no matter what, are the children of a living creator. Brings up the question, do I think I created myself? We'll be talking about it more eventually. Of a living creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon, these are the requirements, as soon as we are willing, honest, and I'm going to add open enough to try. Remember page 25 says you only have two alternatives, the bitter end or accepting spiritual help. And the whole rest of the book is about how do I accept spiritual help? I veered off. I'm away from what I think should be the primary purpose of my life. How do I get back? How do I accept spiritual help? How do I get God into my life? And then, I love trying to get this whole deal down to simple phrases, because then when I'm in trouble, I just have to remember, well, what's the basic formula? And the basic formula is pause, ask and listen, and then do in accordance with what you hear. And the problem is that so many of us are unable to pause, or we are able to pause and we're able to ask because we're in pain and we're asking for relief from our pain. And then the next problem is we can't listen. And we can't listen because this thing is going on and on and on, consciously and subconsciously. It's going on and on and on about our calamity, complaining about the calamity, and how if this, and this happened, I could be happy. That's the first lie of resentment. I am unhappy, but it's not my fault, it's your fault. If you would behave better, I could be happy, and the world would be a better place. And the second lie is, I'm going to resent you as a way of making the world a better place. And the third lie is, I could never do what you're doing. And that's why honesty is so important to this deal. Okay, pause, ask, listen, do. Humbly rely and behave in accordance with what my higher self tells me to do. And that's no different than step 10 is the pause. Step 11 is the asking and listening. Prayer is asking, meditation is listening. And step 12 is the doing, which just means our way of life is 10, 11, and 12 every day, all the time. No exceptions, no matter what. This is not about stopping drinking. This is about getting a relationship with God. Period. Okay, let's see. I better get back to the notes. Oh, well, I talked about this a little bit. What if I was how can I veer off if I was never on? It's a valid question. And what it brings up for me is the two parts of step two. Because the first part is easy. Do I believe, or am I even willing to believe in a power greater than myself? Sure. Yeah, you bet. Let's go. That's easy. Do I believe it can restore me to sanity? That's a much harder part of step two. And then it brings up, have I gotten desperate enough and my self-reliance has failed enough that I am finally in a position to wholeheartedly ask for help. And that ask always has two parts. Relieve me of the bondage of self is the first part, that I may better do thy will. That's the second part. That's the action part. Please remove my fear. That's the first part. And direct my attention to what you would have me be. That's the second part. And it's no different than humbly rely and then behave the way I am guided to behave. It's always the same. So there's one more quick little formulation that happens before the third step prayer, where Wilson says, first of all, we have to quit playing God. Now, if you're like me, I have no idea what that means. What do you mean playing God? I'm not playing God. If you substitute veering off, first of all, I have to stop veering off, moving away from God. If we ever get to these Ignatian things, he's got these rules for discernment, which really means rules for decision making. And the only thing is you're trying to establish a primary purpose of your life, and then you're trying to discern whether some proposed activity or line of thinking will bring you closer to that primary purpose or take you further away. Or in our parlance, will it improve your conscious contact or make your conscious contact more difficult? Not working. So, one, quit playing God. This, in my mind, is the pause, and it's also step 10, but I gotta quit playing God, which for me fundamentally means believing my own thinking. That's where I veered off. I had a moment I can remember, I think I was 11, sitting in church. I've described this to you before. I'm hearing some hypocrite in my mind read the Bible, and I hear this voice in my head that says, this is crap. These people are not living the way they're talking. Trust me, follow me. I'll get us out of here. And then I'm 11 years old, and it takes me 50, 60 years to understand that that's not working. How do I know it's not working? Because resentment and fear and remorse are my constant companions. You tell me to be patient, tolerant, kind, and loving. And I'm just gonna, are you freaking kidding me? What do you mean patient, tolerant, kind, and loving? Look at my calamity. Look at all this stuff I got to deal with. Look at all these wrongs I got to right. These people I got to change. These conditions I've got to improve. Don't talk to me about patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. First of all, we have to quit playing God. Why? Why do they say, what is the answer to that? Because it's not working. This brings me right back to my spot. How's it working for you? How's this working for you? That's why we don't quit playing God because we want God in our lives. We quit playing God because our lives are not working. 2, invite God in. Invite God into your life. Doesn't use the word invite. It says it a little bit differently. It says take the attitude or the position that God is your, what is it? First is director and you're the actor, or God is your boss and you're the employee, or God is your parent and you're the child. Take that attitude and go to that, whatever it is, and ask, all right, in this drama of life, what's the role that you want me to play and how do you want me to play it? I'm going to stop trying to arrange the scenery and the lights and the ballet and all this stuff to what I think is good, and I'm going to try to listen to you. Invite God in. Quit playing God, invite God in. And then the third one is do. Do as directed. And the promise is if I will do that, I will experience serenity instead of calamity. Okay, I don't know where I am. Let's see. Okay. I did want to mention, the spiritual appendix is such an important thing because most all of us are dreadfully impatient. And the spiritual appendix is a call to patience because it's saying, yeah, I know you want what Bill got. You want lights out. You want lights on. I don't know what, but you want it to happen as quickly for you as alcohol did. I could just smell the alcohol and already I felt better. Just think about it. Oh, when I get home, I can drink. That's what we want because alcohol was so effective at doing its job, bringing us relief from whatever. And the spiritual appendix says, sorry, most of us get this thing rather slowly. So you can veer off quickly, but you also can veer off slowly. It's the way our book talks about it is you get beyond the point where you can return through human means. It doesn't say it that way, but so we have to allow for that. Maybe you didn't veer off. Maybe it was a slow slide into constant restless, irritable, and discontent. I don't know, but wanted to make that. And the same is with coming back. Where did I veer off? Well, I didn't veer off. I kind of wobbled off. So the more appropriate question is, where did I wobble off? But it's the same coming back. It doesn't happen. We don't veer. Most of us don't veer back. Although we do get a sense. I think enthusiastic Amy would back me up. We do get a sense. I think the way she says it, for the first time in 30 years of AA, I started to feel as though this thing might actually work for me. Wow, that's worth hanging on to. That's really the purpose of our meetings. For those of us who have benefited from this process, is to build other people's faith that this thing is for real. Everybody has trouble with God. It's so funny. We come in thinking our problem is alcohol, and you kind of discover, you go the transition, alcohol wasn't the problem, it was the solution. Then we have a problem with God. I don't want to play the role you're assigning me. I want to decide on my own role. And then slowly we discover God is the solution. Always. Okay. Okay, so just a couple other things. trying to tie this to the book as well. I think for me, where I veered off was this moment I described to you, where I started believing my own thinking. So I want to point out 2 pages that say something that I think is pretty remarkable. And the first is going to be page 49. And this is in We Agnostics, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5 pages in. And if you don't have it marked already, in my opinion, it's worth marking. Because what this thing says is, instead of regarding our, I'm going to read it their way, and then I'm going to read it with my own words. Instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists choose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? And I've said before, the use of the word vain is a great word. It's vain in terms of it's narcissistic. It's assuming that that little old me, that I can figure this all out in my own head, the vanity of believing my own thinking, but it also means futile. It means it won't work, in vain. Emmett Fox says that the commandment, thou shalt not call the Lord God's name in vain, or something like that. What it really means is, not what it means on another level is, you cannot ask for God's help and have it be in vain. Right? You cannot ask for God's help and have it not work out. It may not work out the way you're planned, but you cannot call on God's help in vain. So now let me read it my way. Instead of regarding myself as an intelligent agent, well, that was the middle relationship in inviting God in step 3. Inviting God in as my principal, and I'm the agent. Instead of regarding myself as an intelligent agent, part of God's ever-advancing creation, or you could say evolution of consciousness. I am part of the evolution of consciousness. That's why I'm here, not to bolster my retirement. I spent a lot of years, trying to bolster that was my primary purpose, bolster my retirement so I can quit and play. I'm tired of working, tired of all these people. But what I am is part of the evolution of consciousness, of spiritual beings called souls, incarnated in human bodies, trying to get out from under the demands of the body and the mind and start trying to get closer to the demands of our Creator, which is that I humbly rely and behave. Instead of regarding myself as an intelligent agent, part of the evolution of consciousness, doesn't matter whether I'm atheist or agnostic, doesn't matter, I choose to believe that my human thinking, my self-reliance, is the beginning and the end of everything. That's where I veered off. I believed my own thinking. And believe me, abandoning my own thinking and on awakening, asking God to direct my thinking has been the biggest challenge for me in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I not only was unable to let go of my old ideas, I was trying to prove that they worked. part of my major agenda was to prove I can think my way to a great life. And I can't. I mean, I didn't do too bad, but there was no serenity. There was just varying degrees of restless, irritable discontent, resentment, fear, and remorse. That's all I got for my self-reliance. And then I had to drink. That's the critical part. I couldn't not drink. I'm one of those who's going to say, if it wasn't for alcohol, I don't think I could have been here this long. I don't think I would have made it to 76. Don't tell anybody. It's just, well, okay. All right. So this thing is critical. So then go to turn one page to page 51. And in this is before the bedevilments, mind you. This is before we're looking at the symptoms of why and how we veered off. That top paragraph, come down to when it says, they show I love this. Leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how bad my life was, unsatisfying my life was. They show how the change came over them. And then this, when many hundreds of people are able to say, now he's lying, first of all, there weren't hundreds of people, there were 50 to 100. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their lives, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith. I'm going to suggest that if you do have a relationship with God and you are in a meeting of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, the majority of whom do not have a relationship with God, your job is to say something to the effect that my relationship with God is today the most important fact of my life, or it's growing to be the most. I mean, it doesn't have to be the most important fact of my life, but it's a great question. Ask yourself. They're saying the consciousness of the presence of God is the most important fact of their lives. What is the most important fact of my life? That I'm sober? That I think I'm sane? That I've got enough money for my retirement? Okay, I don't know, Desi. We'll find out in open discussion whether or not we answered your question. But so what we're gonna do now is Jennifer's gonna stop the recording, and then we're gonna have some open discussion.